in finance. You guys did that on Thursday with Shelby, right? And now you're like, okay, now I know how much money I need, now I need to go out and do that. I would love if someone could explain this slide for me, just so you get experience and understanding of where we are in the curriculum and in relation to where we are right now. Does someone want to volunteer? Like you're teaching a class. Ta-da. See, you're almost jumping, so go for it.
Okay. Okay, so we started. I think we started with the divergence. That is like taking a few steps backwards about asking the right question for getting there in the right position.
Great.
Then we got into convergence for knowing how to do it when we need to do it. It's like a general kind of phrase. And now we're doing it. In the emergence, we're
focusing in.
Yeah, that's it. We're diving in, and we're in the last phase of this one, pitching and French.
Right, so we're doing pitching and fundraising, and we're going to explain. You guys are probably wondering why pitching is connected. We're going to talk about how before you could fundraise for anyone, you need to learn how to pitch. And you're going to realize that every pitch is marketed very differently to different people, and we're going to get into that as well. Excellent. Does anyone have questions about this, where we are at the curriculum, and how it's going for you? Okay, here we go. We're jumping right in. Okay, the Jewish narrative, okay? There's always a Jewish narrative, and how we do this in Israel. We actually don't use this slide anymore. We're going to use it here today. Who knows about the holiday of Shavuot? What's so special about it? What happens?
It's when we receive the Torah. The Jews receive the Torah.
Okay, what else happens around the holiday of Shavuot?
First fruits.
Bringing our first fruits. Where do we bring it to?
Beit
Hamikdash. We bring our first fruits. What kind of? Give me an example. Kind of explain to you. Draw me a picture of what happens with the festival of Bikurim. We'll call it.
Take your first tomato. You walk with that like 300 kilometers. Really proud to a point.
Okay, so great. You just pointed at something really, take something really precious to you, and you're walking really far, and Haley added that, feeling really
proud.
Okay, what else is unusual or exciting about this holiday?
People wear white, come together.
Love white, but people are coming together. I was going to say I love white, but the coming together is the important part. What's so exciting about Shavuot, what's so exciting about the Purim, is that people are taking something that's really, really precious to them, walking really, really, really far. Think about your first fruit. I always think about it like that thing you worked really hard for. It's like that first time you really succeeded at something, or that first time and you're taking it, and you're walking really, really far. Probably hot, think about it like May. And you're going with a lot of people, and you're going to the temple, and you're giving it. What's unusual about that? What's exciting about this narrative, and why do you think it's related to the topic that we're talking about today? I see you're shaking your head, Marty, so I want to pick you as my victim.
Sorry, honestly, I was actually thinking about something else as I was nodding my head regarding something else you had said.
Okay, so what I was saying is that we're thinking about the most precious thing to us.
Yeah.
We're putting it in a basket. We're walking far with a lot of people, and we're giving it away. Why is this such an exciting or interesting topic for specifically what we're talking today about fundraising and pitching?
So do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll answer if you want. I don't want to force you.
Sorry. We are most passionate about the thing that we hold the closest to our heart, and we have the most ability to share that with people in the most passionate way that gets people excited. And I think that's actually what the Festival of Shavuot is that which we have received, which is most precious to the Jewish people, and the ability to then have passed that on to the people on that day is the equivalent of fundraising.
That's really interesting. It's actually not going to be in your slides, but you should write that down. It's a really great point. Like we're receiving, we're giving. It's all about the receiving and giving. I want to even take it further. Think about the concept of this narrative of a lot of people marching together. It's a really successful fundraising system. Think about it's like the first most successful fundraising system where we're convincing people that this is something they really want to do. It's become very social. Like not necessarily, maybe you weren't so excited about it, but you knew that all your friends are going to do it. I always kind of look at it as one of those marathons. I don't know if this example works as much, but throughout these marathons, everyone's running, right? Breast cancer, let's say, right? Or for juvenile diabetes. It's not something that you really thought about on a regular basis, or it's not something that you were really concerned about, but suddenly everyone's running, and you're like, okay, that's a great concept. I love to run. Juvenile diabetes is a really big problem. Breast cancer is a really big issue. Let me fundraise for that and run with it. So this system was a really successful fundraising system because it got buy-in from the people. People were excited to do it. People were doing it together. And we're able to really convince people that they are part of this narrative. And we look at that as our first exciting kind of fundraising system. I forgot my shoes. Can I put them up?
Yeah.
Can I put them up again? So that's kind of the most exciting thing. I wanted to start with shoes and I forgot it, so we're going to go back a second. You're going to excuse my ADD for 1 minute. I wanted to start with a personal story. Happened a couple weeks ago. I have this thing, I really notice shoes. Now, I can tell you, I probably remember most of their shoes. It's like weird. But I sit and I meet someone and I'm looking at them and I always look at their shoes and I wasn't really sure why, but you could learn a lot about someone from their shoes. And I'll tell you why. Some people are really trendy and they're wearing their really like trendy Nike sneakers. Some people are wearing shoes that are less comfortable. And I'm always thinking to myself, wow, they really like made an effort today to wear shoes that are really nice but less comfortable. So I'm talking too fast. I get passionate about shoes, I go fast. And I'm always thinking like, okay, this guy's wearing really trendy sneakers. He went one day to a store and bought funky blue sneakers because he thinks they're really cool. I feel like you could really learn a lot about people by the shoes they're wearing. I want you to think about that, you'll see. And one thing that happened to me once, it was a little embarrassing. I was sitting we kind of went out for like we went out for drinks after the presidential conference. We were sitting at this bar. This guy walks in and I remember him, he's like a coworker in our office. And I looked down and I saw he has like 3 different types of really funky like sneakers, red, blue, and green, I think. And he was wearing his red ones. He's like, someone introduced me. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're the guy with the red shoes. I saw you in the elevator. We went up to the office the other day. And he was really creeped out by me. And he's like, nice to meet you. But I was able to really learn a lot about him by just looking at his shoes. And I just want us to think about that kind of overall arching picture is that when you're sitting in front of someone, I want you guys to really think about this kind of headspace through this. Is like, what's interesting to that person? What makes that person tick? What did that person get up in the morning and feel like? Because at the end of the day, friendraising is kind of really psychology. It's really being able to look at the person in front of you and figure out what they're excited about. And that's going to run through this whole presentation today. So I want you guys, every time you kind of run a friendraising conversation, I know you're going to think of shoes right now, because I want you to be able to really focus in on that one thing that you could learn about the person sitting in front of you. So for me, it's shoes. Because that's just like, I'm like, wow, she's wearing Louis Vuittons. She really cares about fashion. Or he's wearing comfort shoes. He cares more about comfort than about style, whatever it is. It's my thing. But I want you guys to think about friendraising in the context of learning about the person sitting in front of you. I kind of wanted to start off with that. We're going to get back to our first fruits now. Do you mind? I'm sorry.
No.
So that was my way of just giving you that little kind of piece of information that makes me understand. So back to Shavuot. Like we said, first successful fundraising system got people to do something that's not so obvious now that you think about it, to go take their first fruits and go and give them out. So my question to you, and that's kind of what we're going to discuss today, is why do people give? Why do you think somebody decides to take money out of their pocket and give to a cause? Often they don't really, they know the person a little. It's not, it's not like putting money towards a vacation. It's not buying their new car. So why are they giving? Yeah, I love that I'm with you today. This is
good like that. I think it's to get, even though it's not only for getting money back or I don't know, it's to get even the satisfaction. It's getting something.
Okay.
The good feeling of giving something.
So you're saying people give to get? That's
yeah, but it's not, it sounds bad, but I think it's the core. It's the core of giving. It's getting back, even if it's a good feeling. I'm getting back my satisfaction.
There's no selfless act.
Yeah.
So you're saying giving is actually not really selfless. Okay, good.
Fixing a traumatic memory or a traumatic experience. Like I was underprivileged as a boy, and now I would like to donate money to help other people or kids. It's not going to be underprivileged like I did.
Good, and at its core, what does that do for you though? Like that's perfect. And what does that do?
I'm fixing the situation with myself.
And how do you feel?
I'm feeling whole.
Right.
I'm finished with the problem. I'm not that underprivileged kid again.
So you're able to really give to the situation that you suffered from and you feel better about that.
I've heard one of the best owners in the world saying that every person has his job, and if someone is really good in business and you've made a fortune out of it, it's his business to make sure that the money is shared, because it's just by mistake that his profession is earning money. So some people just see the bigger picture, and when they have enough money, they know to give it away.
I wish there were more people like that, but that's really how it should be, and we see that a lot, and that's great. Benji?
It's really like a Facebook like. It's like cause like the status, and by giving money, you're saying I approve of this, and I buy in, and I want to be a part of this thing.
Giving is like a Facebook like. I like it. You're buying in, you're showing support, you're showing You know, you didn't have to put, let's go with this all the way, right? You didn't have to put the post up, you didn't have to think about it. Someone put it up and you're like, oh, I really, and he needs the music. Like, I totally get it. Yeah, I'm gonna go along with that. Problem is likes are much easier to give than money, but it's very similar to Facebook like. Good. And we're gonna talk about giving that's not only money. I want us to think about also in the headspace of why do people give? Short little story. So Becky Caspi, she's associate director of the Jewish Federations of North America and Israel. She's amazing. She kind of is a representative of all the federations in Israel, and she comes to speak to our fellows every summer. She said one of the most amazing kind of lessons for me. She said, I'm sitting with you guys here today for an hour and a half. I'm giving you my time. My time is the most valuable thing I can give you. Why? Because I'm never going to be able to get back. I could decide to give each one of you guys here $1,000, and I'll make that back maybe in a couple months of salary. But the time that I decided to give you today, I'll never be able to make back. And I want us to think today about also giving in the sense of giving other things that are not necessarily money, because often those are the most valuable. You know, in present times, we always say that an entrepreneur needs 3 things, right? He needs a lot of practice and not theory. He needs time and not money. And he needs a community to support him. And what is that time and not money piece? Because and often in the beginning, when a venture comes along, and he says, he's kind of at this stage, he's still trying to figure out his social business model, let's say, and someone says to him, well, how much money do you need? And he's not sure. He actually really probably needs more time right now to develop a better model, or to speak to more people, and then the money will be helpful. So I want us to think about the whole concept of friendraising and pitching and fundraising, also in fundraising other things, and we'll talk about that today. Okay, so you guys said it exactly right? Giving is for the outcome. People always think that like fundraising is very different for profits and not-profits. It's very similar. When someone's giving, it's the same process that you're building. Maybe it's a little different. So when someone's giving to a process that's kind of investing in a company, maybe has a different system that he builds in, but he's still giving it to the team, right? You'll see this in startups. So go to JVP, and you ask Mel Margalit often why he invests. He loves the idea, but he also loves the team, right? So I feel bad. I don't want to. No. Just tell me. Do you want me to clarify something here?
No.
Oh, sorry. So I just like the concept of investing in people is very similar. When someone invests in your project or in your venture, they want to invest in a team. They want to invest in a good idea. They want to invest in a project that's been cooked, that's been prototyped. So giving is very similar in both worlds. And people often will tell you, no, it's kind of different. But it really isn't, because people are looking for that reassurance. The person on the other side wants to know that they're getting something and that they're really going to get that outcome. People give to causes they believe in or to companies they believe in. They give less for the idea itself. I want to explain that to you guys, and I want you guys, first of all, I want you guys to think, why do you think that is? Why do you think people give less to the specific? They give to an outcome. Why? Why? No, I don't. I want you to. I think it's great. No, I'm listening. No. Now you have to say something.
Okay, I think that because it's what's important for the entrepreneur, but it is important for the donor, or I don't know, but he's donating the money. I mean, we just talked in our first. Everybody has an idea. An idea is not enough. I mean, you want to see that you can take your idea into actions. I mean, if he gives money to everyone who have a good idea, so we spend away his money for nothing. We want to see outcomes.
Okay, good. Excellent. Barb.
I think ideas are limitless. There is a ton of idea, and more than that, a donor has the ability to come up with an idea. What makes it so interesting is that you choose a person that can actually run with this project, and you can see like there will be an outcome and not a good idea and a great smile.
Okay, so I want to just kind of touch on that point because it's a very important point, right? Donors see 15,000 ideas every day. Lots of great ideas. But when someone comes to them and says, I'm going to do the work for you, you're passionate about it. Remember, you're going to look at them and you're going to see what are they passionate about. We're going to get into that more. You're passionate about whatever it is. I'm going to show, we're going to be able to change that. Through my project, we're going to see a decrease in child dropout, whatever it is. In schools, people want to see outcomes. They don't want to see the ideas are great. They don't want to see the nuts and bolts of how you're doing it. They don't want to say, I'm going to hire 15 staff members and we're going to work in 2 schools. That's not where you're going. You're going through my venture. And sometimes they're going to say, okay, let's go backwards. How are you going to get there? But at the end of the day, they want to know that your idea will get them to an outcome that they believe in. Because I always kind of look at people as you as a shaliach for them, right? So we're working with the Leash Tag Foundation. They're passionate. Charlotte, you guys met Charlene. Their concept is Jerusalem. Well, I forgot to introduce you, Marnie, I'll do it. Their whole focus is Jerusalem. Leash Tech came to us and we told them, listen, we said, Charlene, we're working in Jerusalem anyway. We're working with social entrepreneurs. We know exactly what's going on in Jerusalem. Let me tell you something. We're going to be your brain trust. Now, Leash Tech love that. She uses brain trust till now. Because at the end of the day, we're working with all the people that you're passionate about. And the ideas are happening through us. Why don't we let us do the work for you? And a lot of the time, that's the conversation you're having with the donor across the table. You're passionate about something specific. We're doing that work. Let's work together. A lot of the times, people are scared to ask for that money because they're like, oh, I have to go and I have to ask for money. You're actually doing someone a favor by letting them give to a cause that they're passionate about. It's a kind of a switch people need to do in their head. Because fundraising, a lot of the time, is a very negative connotation of like, people are like, well, fundraising. Why are you whispering? You have an amazing idea. You have an incredible project. You're about to do the person across the table from you the biggest favor of their life. Because you're doing the work. You're their shaliach. You're going to do the work. They're just giving you the money. Yes?
It's also the reason that people are connected to other people, not the ideas. I mean, we're emotional human beings. It's like plenty of people can come into a job interview with a resume that has every credential in the world, but they're all the same. And then you meet a person. People get hired all the time for high-tech jobs, for which they don't have experience because they're impressive people. They got hired. They want to be inspired by people.
Yes, and people give to people, and that was my next kind of thing is we spoke about this. People always say that people give to people. What does that mean? When someone's sitting across the table from you, so they heard your idea, and your outcomes sound great. But if there isn't that click and if they don't have that trust in you, they're not going to let you be their shaliach. They're not interested. And you have to realize that these things take time. Relationships do not happen overnight. These conversations, and we always talk about how you get there. Okay, so first meeting. First meeting, you don't ask for money, right? You go into the room, you start talking to the person. What is the first thing that you do? And it's so counterintuitive to what we usually do, is you go into the room and you listen. Because if you can't listen to what makes that person the most excited, then there's no way you're going to be able to market or tailor what you do. And we're going to talk about tailoring in a minute, but I want to talk about an amazing, amazing story I heard from Ray Ringel, who's an amazing facilitator. She came and taught in this room about 5 months ago about fundraising, and I had to come and hear her. And she told us a really beautiful story. So she never goes into any meeting before she does a little bit of research. She goes and she figures out who do the people give to, how do they love to give, what kind of projects, how much do they give. You don't want to ask for $50,000 if they usually give $300,000. You don't want to undersell yourself. You don't want to over. So she does all the research and she figures out about this person. And she usually really spends the first 10 to 15 minutes learning about the person in front of them. Often as fundraisers, people go into the room and say, hi, let me tell you about my project. You're so quick to sell. You're so quick to push your idea. But if you took a step back and you learned about you looked at this person's shoes, right? You learned about this person and what the things that they're excited about, you're able to eventually tailor what you do. So Ray was telling this beautiful story. She walked into a meeting with this guy. And everyone warned her, listen, this guy never gives to Federation. He's not interested in Federation. She looked at all of the projects that he's given to in the past, and none of them had to do with any of the targets of what Federation usually works with, like hunger relief and community and education and Jewish activism, whatever it is. So she's like, let me try. I'm going to sit with this guy. I'm obviously not going to make him give to something he doesn't want to give, but who knows? She walked into the meeting, she sat with him. And this guy was a really savvy entrepreneur, and he was talking about his businesses, and she's listening to him, and she's like, so tell me something. What are the things that you're most passionate about? So he was kind of impressed, but she's like sitting there listening to him when she's a Federation person. He's usually here, like hearing a fundraising pitch. And he's like, I'm really passionate about animal relief. And she's like, okay, like obviously the Federation in DC does not do any animal relief. They don't have animal shelters. We don't take care of that. And she's like, listen, and he's like, and it's really important to me that there's really adequate shelters for animals in North America. I'm not telling the story perfectly, so don't get me on it. And she was like, I don't know much about animals. She's talking about the whole concept of animal relief, and she thought to herself, wait a second, this person's a really compassionate human being. If he's so passionate about taking care of like animals who are in distress and giving them shelters, he'll probably be really interested in our project that has to do with child abuse in our district. So she started talking to him about that, and he was really interested. He suddenly started listening. He goes, you seem like a really compassionate human being. There's a project that we're doing right now in DC that has to do with children who come from abused homes and creating homes for them. And he's like, oh, that's really interesting. And she said that she finally, that was like a kind of aha moment that she had. There is not a thing that you do that somebody wouldn't be interested in if you could learn about that person. Just because that person is giving to animal relief, now he didn't wake up one day and say, I'm giving to animal relief. It was a process. He's a compassionate human being. And through that compassion that he has, he likes to give to animals, to children. And that's how she learned about him. And if she walked in there and said, this is what the Federation does, these are the 3 areas that we work in, Jewish education, he would not even listen to her. He's like, Malach veli, like, why are we even sitting at the same table? And that's a really, really important thing to do in friend-raising, is to sit at the table and see who am I sitting with at the table. What are the things that make this person tick? What are the areas that make this person most excited? What are the areas that this person will never, ever give to, and I shouldn't talk about that? And that's the most important lesson that I learned over the past year, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Okay, so how do we get into the mindset of giving? People give because they want to, right? No one's giving when they don't want to give. But rather than feel you're taking their money, feel that you're offering them an amazing opportunity to be part of something bigger. Involve people. Bring them close to your vision. Bring them close to your passion. Passion and vision. So let's talk about that for a second. I want to talk to you guys about getting into the mindset. We said that already, right? People give because they want to give. But more importantly, people give to causes that they're really excited about, and they want to feel part of an opportunity. I want to talk to you about the models that people can give to through present tense, and how that way we get them really involved in the things that we're doing. People don't like to give to a black hole. You know what the concept of a black hole is? It's like present tense means, and I think Noah spoke about it for a couple minutes last week when she was here. People want to know that they're giving to a program, to something specific, something that they believe in. So present tense, as you guys all know, we work with social entrepreneurship, we work in communities, we have mentorship opportunity, we have a pretty general kind of vision. But when you go into a meeting, I see, or when I'm working with a donor, I see what are these things that are most exciting to this donor. So one of the great models that we have with giving is something called the chair process. We do that a lot in our Global Institute. I think we do it in New York and Jerusalem as well. And the chair process really allows us to allocate a specific area in our fellowship, right? So our fellowships take projects that have to do with environment and social action and education and Jewish gaming, all these topics. How do we get to those? Those are pretty general areas. So the work that Present Tense has done in the past, and we do it today now, and we'll give you 2 really good examples of things that are happening now, is we think about, well, who cares about Jewish education in the Jewish world? Jewish education is a really large topic. How do I find an organization that's passionate about Jewish education and connect them to a project that I'm doing anyway at Present Tense? Every year, we have a project that has to do with Jewish education. Jewish education is the broadest topic I've ever heard in my life. I can make pretty much anything that you guys do around the table connect to Jewish education, I promise you. So we get projects every year that has to do with Jewish education, with environment. We're going to stick to Jewish education now. And what we do with these projects is we turn to different organizations that deal with that and say, guys, we have a great opportunity for you. There's a young, excited social entrepreneur who's coming for 6 weeks to work on a project. We would love if you sponsored their seat. Why do you think organizations in the Jewish world are excited to sponsor a seat if someone's sitting on a Jewish education topic? I want you to get into their mindset for a second. What are the values, since you know our program a little bit, that we could bring them through sponsoring a seat in a topic that they care about? How can we make them feel connected? How can we get them to be part of our narrative and our vision?
They feel like they're involved in the next generation.
Good. It's very entrepreneurial. It's very cool for a Jewish organization to say I'm investing in the next generation of Jewish educators through an entrepreneurship project. Good. What else?
To continue our culture.
Exactly. So if you're so passionate about Jewish education, then you want to make sure that great ideas are happening there. Present Tense is a great lab for that. Every year we have, every summer we have 16 great new ideas for that. People are really excited about that concept. What else? Yalla, come on. So I'll explain to you what happened with the I Center. So the I Center was really excited. They said, great, Jewish education project, we love it. Every summer I send them 3 projects. I get 3 applications. Often, guys, let me tell you, this is how the process works. I always have to go back online, and I have to remember exactly the wording that they use that's really exciting for them. And then I look at these 2 or 3 projects that applied that are kind of relevant, and I pick up the phone and I call these applicants and I say, listen, I have a huge opportunity for you. The I Center is going to sponsor a seat at the Present Tense Global Summer Institute. They're looking for projects that have to do in certain areas. Your project, and I did this year, your project has to do with an online game that has really like Jewish education and that, it's education. I said, can you highlight the parts that have to do with Israel in it? Oh, it's actually, when I said Jewish education, I meant Israel education. So I said, can you highlight the part that has to do with Israel education in it? And he's like, yeah, I do deal with Israel education. Like, that's one of the areas that I do. I also want to do 2 other types of education, but Israel is one of them. I'm like, great. Can you help me tailor your venture description so I can send it to them and see if this is the process they're interested in? What did I do here? I could have just sent them his regular venture description, and one of the things that he spoke about was Israel. you have to sometimes get into the mindset. You have to do the work for them. So by being able to tailor the project, I didn't lie. I didn't make anything up. It was a completely transparent experience. But what I was able to do was I was able to say, this is what's passionate about for the Eye Center. I sent the guy the link. I said, this is what the Eye Center does. Do not tailor anything until you read the website 3 times. And then I said, here's a project that you're interested in. He looked at it. He read it. He sent me something that was perfect. The Eye Center was totally excited. They're working together. We'll see what happens. The point is that we gave an organization in the Jewish world an opportunity to be part of something entrepreneurial, to maybe invest in the next big project that they're going to do. They've invested in 2 of our other projects that have gone through the Global Institute. We've given a young entrepreneur an opportunity to start learning the first steps of friendraising, right? He's realizing, what is the person in front of him? Again, like the shoes. What's exciting to the person in front of me? What are they most passionate about? And through being able to do that, we're able to really create, it's really all about giving people opportunities. You're able to create a narrative, and look at it as almost like a shidduch, like a successful one, and they're on their way. We do the same thing with other insurers. I think the most important thing is by involving them and understanding what makes them passionate, getting close to their vision, we're able to give them an opportunity to give where everyone is winning here. You don't want someone to give to you when they don't feel like they're winning. You don't want someone to give to you when they don't feel like they're part of the experience.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
When I work with organizations and their fundraising, the first thing that I ask them to do is I ask them to look at their project and think of it in the broadest possible terms, and literally write down a list of everything possible it could be associated with. And
good.
Because when you get into those meetings, number one, it's important to think on your feet, but it's also important that you've already thought about in the way that Ray was able to connect compassion to the fact that they have a project for children, home, whatever. That you've thought about all of the possible people you might come across. You can't think about everybody, but if you've done sort of your homework, you can and walk in there and you already know. I'll give you a very concrete example of the camp that I used to work for. It was a camp to take children with life-threatening and serious illnesses and give them a weeks-long vacation, and so there's a lot of different markets that can sell to. One of the target constituencies that I went after, interestingly enough, was the Christian fundamentalist groups, because they had vested interest in Israel, and they also had vested interest in seeing certain joint projects that might work between Arabs and specifically Christian Arabs and Jews. And so you wouldn't think, it was a camp for children with kids. How could I have targeted it? But before I ever even went to them, I already thought of all of the different ways.
Mapping out is really important, and I can tell you that the range of foundations that we work with, from Russell Berry that usually give to arts, through the Eye Center, who gives to Jewish education, Israel education through the Covenant, who has to do with environmental, the whole concept is realizing what are the broadest areas, just like Marnie was saying, and how do you map those out? And then when it's time to really walk into the room, how do you focus back in and target on the things that they're really excited about? And I think that it's very, I was in a meeting last week with Hebrew Union College. They won our seminars for an entrepreneurship program that they're running. They deal with entrepreneurship, community, and people that are very Jewish people. So I knew that I wasn't going to push the Jewish piece of what we do, because that's what they do. She doesn't want to hear it. She came to the office because she wants to hear about my seminars that have to do with entrepreneurship. So I spent the whole time explaining to her the social business model, and because I realized that the person sitting in front of me, yes, she's interested in Jewish peoplehood, but she does it a lot better than I do it. That's her job. She's in Hebrew Union College. They teach Judaism. We teach entrepreneurship. Always remember what you do in relation to the person that you're sitting in front of you. And obviously you're not going to make up something that you don't do, but you'll learn how to focus in. So it's exactly, you map out, and then you go, and then you focus in. We're going to go a little bit quicker for the next part, because I want us to have time for the networking piece. So I said there's 4 ways that people could give to you. And it actually makes a lot of sense that it starts from introduction and goes all the way to time, because it has to do with how you build that relationship over time. This is not something that happens overnight. You start very, very small. And I'll give you an example, right? So I'll just go over them quickly. The introductions are connections to valuable contacts and gatekeepers, people who can open gates for you and start relationships. The insights are valuable insights and wise suggestions. The investments, which are different types of monetary support, and the investment of time is money, and time is money, and it's the most valuable thing you seek now. Let me explain to you how this process works and why it's a process and doesn't happen overnight. First thing I usually do with someone, and I say, you know, it's so nice to meet you, I'd love if you could grab a coffee. Obviously not asking for money right away. You sit and you grab a coffee, you ask someone to give you, you start listening back to what's the first thing you do, you listen to them, right? You're not talking, you don't tell them anything about your venture. You listen about, because you could learn so much about a person to just be quiet for the first 15 minutes of the conversation. Who are the people that they know? What are the things that they're excited about? What kind of help they can give you? And at that point, you could say, it would be great if you could introduce me to A, B, or C. Introductions that happen through people are the most successful you're going to get. They're much better than cold calls or cold emails. Like, it would be great if you could introduce me to this and this foundation, to this and this individual. Those could be helpful in any way. The next thing is you say, I would love if, this is the project that we're doing. It would be great if you could, what do you think about this project? People love to be heard. And I think that if you slowly bring someone into a relationship, if they were okay enough to meet you, right? They were like, sure, I'll come meet you. Then they're interested. Don't be like, don't be shy. Start asking them for advice, because the more someone starts getting invested into your venture, the more they're going to want to make those connections for you, the more they're going to want to give you ideas, and eventually, if someone is so time invested in your venture, they're going to eventually give you money. And that's something that we see very, very often. Because by the time because they're not just putting their most valuable asset into your organization for nothing, they're doing it because they believe in it. So if they believe in it that much, eventually there's a conversation that you could have about, well, would you be, even if it's the smallest little grant you've ever received in your life, it doesn't matter. The minute someone invests their time, it's much easier to try to get them to invest their money. So again, you start small, you make them feel part of the process. So by giving you their valuable connections and relationships, they're invested in you, and your success is suddenly very important to them. They're not going to send you to like a good friend of theirs who's a VC or a director at a large bank, and then you're going to go and make a fool of yourself. They're going to want to make sure that you're going in there and you have something really good to sell to them. Make sure that you really tap into this person's insights and advice. Often the best advice you're going to get are from these kind of people. They've seen a lot of ideas out there. They're going to ask you really, really tough questions. And listen to those questions, and don't get defensive. That's a really good point. We really need to think about that. People really, again, the more you give them an opportunity to be invested in the process, I think the more they'll be, eventually that relationship, gets stronger.
Dana really calls it the effect IKEA. Do you remember when going to IKEA and putting the furniture by yourself? So this is why it makes you connected to whatever you get.
Interesting. So yeah, go for it.
Have you noticed that, especially in Israel, people who contribute tend to want to help you design your project? It's like, let's say, for example, present tense. So if I'm a Jewish organization in Israel, then yeah, even though you're going and doing it in Tel Aviv, where Judaism isn't really a thing right now, or you'll still have to put like Jewish input in all your slides, even though, I don't know, like an organization will say, listen, if we are putting money into this, then you'll have to give us 10 slots of hours in order for us to put our content as well. Or, I'm not talking about the logo on top, because that's less
important. You bring up a really important point. So
especially in Israel.
So I think an organization, the first thing needs to understand, what are the parameters and what are the red lines. I think the most important thing for you is the integrity of your venture, right? And you're going to speak to us about your fellows, because often people are going to come in and say, well, if you just, we're having this with one of our fellows. He just got a very big grant from the foundation. He's doing a special high school for Haredi kids who dropped out of yeshiva, and he's helping them do their bagrut and their psychometry. And suddenly the organization who gave him money said, listen, I really want you to partner with a very monstrous organization. He's like, well, if I partner with them, then I'm going to lose the complete integrity of my program, because they have a very specific way of doing things. I come from the Haredi world, I know how to do it. And their foundation's like, well, we're giving you a lot of money, we want to make sure this. And he called me, he's like, what did I do here? I said, listen, you have to keep the integrity of your organization and of your venture. If you feel that it's going to harm or going to, what's the word? If you could compromise the integrity of it, then you need to put a red line there. And I think that foundations actually really eventually, they'll respect that. And this foundation specifically was actually, I think she was like, oh, okay, like he really is passionate about it, he really gets it. They found a compromise to get there. You have to understand your parameters, you have to work inside those parameters.
Before or as you go along?
I think it really depends how the relationship is. Like I think that at the core core of everything is your product for one person is very different than it is for another. When I said that sales is often marketing, is so what I'm doing at Hebrew Union College is going to be very, very different than what I'm doing at my Arab Jewish fellowship in Jerusalem. It's just very different. And what are the things that you're putting the emphasis on? And so,
would you be willing to change your product a bit, or do you think that's
only if I'm not compromising it? If an organization comes to me and says, we really want you to only focus on the social business model aspects, I didn't compromise it. I just focused on the areas that they're most excited about. That's why sales. That's how you can be do a successful job at sales, because you know what you have, you know where you can play around with it. This organization came to us. They're doing training for Ethiopian entrepreneurs in the Tel Aviv area. Now, I said to her, listen, our model is very, very oriented at social business models. I don't know if necessarily all these projects from the Ethiopian community are going to be social business models. Maybe they're going to be complete business models. And I actually told her, look, I'm not sure we can work together. And she said, actually, I want the social piece in there. I'm okay with it. But I wasn't willing to say I'm going to teach you completely only. This is what I know how to do. You need to know what you're really good at. And you need to stick to that. I'm really good at teaching social business models. I will not come in and teach you just, played out business models. That's not what I do. It's not my thing. But there's certain areas where I can take certain things that I do and tweak them. You have to understand what you can tweak. You have to understand the DNA of your product at its core, and realize if there's anything you can play around with, and do not do anything that will compromise it eventually. I think that's the most. I don't know if I was able to answer your question, but I think that's the most important thing. So like I said, these things happen over time. We've had this relationship with this foundation, the Leash-Tag Foundation. Okay, they just gave us a $230,000 grant. It started off with a $30,000 grant. We did a very good job making them feel part of the narrative, updating them, bringing them in, meeting our fellows, realizing it's a part of something much bigger. We were able to ask for something bigger. It happened over time. How many conversations and emails have I had? Did I have with Charlene beforehand? A lot. It took time. Some relationships take 3 years. I'm still waiting for $80,000, like I told you, this foundation. If I met 3 years ago, who told me the money's in the bank, didn't happen yet. But you have to realize that these things take time. They're relationships. They're part of the process. But before you can go in and do anything, and this is something that we're gonna workshop really quickly today. Let's tell me how much more time I have. Like 15 minutes? 40? Oh, good. Is that right? Oh, good. So before you could do anything, you need to know how to pitch. And you need to know what you do. So what did I just say? Like, it was a perfect kind of segue. Like, you need to know at the core of your DNA what you do. Your pitch for one person will be very different from your pitch for someone else. But you still need to understand at your core, what is your unique value proposition? What is that unique thing that you do? And that's something that, that at this point, your venture should be able to answer. You've done your vision, you've figured out your environmental scans, you know who else is doing other things, because they're going to say, well, this happens all the time. What's the difference between you and Ashoka? And I'm like, okay, here it goes again. But I did my environmental scan, so I can answer that question. Or what's the difference between you and Jumpstart? And I'm like, okay, I can answer that. And then I figured out my social business model. Well, how are you going to do it? And then so it's really important for that at this stage, someone could really pitch because they figured out that at their core of their DNA, what they do, how they're different from others, and how you tweak it to people depending who you're talking to in the conversation. Okay, present tense has our methodology of how we pitch. Some of you have gone through this process through our fellowships. For example, Gal, you just went through this. Gal got to pitch at the Tel Aviv Fellowship, what was it, like 2.5 weeks ago?
Yeah,
together with the mayor. How was that experience for you?
It was good. I remember the first day they told us we're going to have 15 minutes. Seconds.
15 years to pitch.
15 lifetimes to pitch. And people kind of freaked out and were like, wait, I don't even know how to explain my idea in an hour right now. It takes me like a whole meeting to pitch. And it was really interesting to see how how you were able to really take the essence and just spread it out and understand that you don't need to actually explain the idea, you just need to make them taste it and want more.
Great. Okay. So usually in this presentation we workshop 3 different types of pitches: a 3-minute conversation, a 45-minute conversation, and a 15-second pitch. Today we're going to focus on the 15-second pitch, but I'm going to show you how the 3 different types work, so you can really understand them. And then we're going to practice 15-second pitches. You guys are going to work in groups and teams, and you're going to get up there. Gal did it, the mayor did it in both cities. You guys can do it. So the first thing that for every, what are the 3 pieces in a solid pitch? Anyone want to read? Because I've spoken too much today. Yes,
What's the problem you're trying to solve? Can someone easily relate to it? How are you going to solve it? Can someone easily understand the solution? What do you need them to do? Can someone easily give you what you need?
Okay, so I often look at the pitch kind of in the language that you learn through vision even, like your promised land, your Egypt, your market contracts, really have to start thinking about these pieces. But finally, number 3 I think is really important. There's nothing more frustrating for someone when you meet with them where you've presented the most incredible problem and the best solution that you don't know what you need from them. Like talk about like disappointment. So realizing that a pitch is not only you telling them what you do, but also understanding what this person in front of you can give to you. And how do you know that? Charlie needs the shoes. No, I mean serious. Like you know that through really understanding who the person is and what are the areas they can help you. And that needs to happen with research and beforehand. So let's just quickly go into them. So an average, we spoke about this, right? The average fundraising is someone goes in and tells you, let me tell you why you need to give me money. What's in it for me? But present tense, we like ninjas. So for ninja raising is what's in it for you? What is the value that you're going to get by being part of our narrative, by joining us in marching? And if you provide enough value, others will help raise friends and funds for you. And really make them become your brand evangelists. Make them, I don't say make them work for you, but franchise them out. Get them to bring people for you. I can just tell you that, I've used Charlene a lot today from Leash Tag because it's the most recent, but she just introduced me to 2 potential funders over the past 2 weeks. Because the minute someone's invested in you, they want everyone to be invested in you. The minute someone starts giving you money, they're like, wait a second, this project is so great, we want to get a lot of other people. And you have to realize how you harness that energy and how you tap into it. Questions before we jump into things? Or I'm talking too fast, or you guys are like, totally listening. Okay, so the 3-minute conversations, these 3-minute conversations are usually ones that you have, someone will come up to you and say, well, you're sitting at a dinner party or at an event, and someone will come up to you and say, well, Benji, tell me a little bit about what you're doing. Here you have a little bit more time, right? For me, I feel like it's really the first 10 seconds that I'm like, this project is interesting, or this project is not interesting for me. But
so you don't start with a personal story.
Well, usually, what do you do in your? What's the first thing you do in your 3-minute conversation?
Tell about yourself.
Ask him about him.
Ask them about themselves. Well, because you're going to do a much better job if you know about the person sitting in front of you. You'll do a much better job telling about the work that you do if you listen. It's kind of.
So
did you say that, Lior? Was that you? Eli, good.
So you have 2 minutes, you're talking to him, and after 2 minutes, okay, stop.
I would say
it's my turn.
I've been to conversations where I actually had them speak for 3 minutes, and then I was like, I would love to grab, coffee to tell you a little bit more about the work we're doing. They're like, great, like this person just listened to me for 3 minutes. I'd love to, you really don't have to talk about yourself too much. I'm being serious. You could even say it in 2 words. Like, I'm working on a project that helps promote Jewish educators in North America. Whatever, the point is that you have to really listen to the person in front of you. And the 3-minute conversation, come up with a 3-minute pitch for your venture. What's the problem, what's the solution, and what you need people to do about it. Find a partner in the room, pitch it to them, then partner and pitch that. That's the first, yeah.
But if you can't even come and do your homework and come and know who are the people you're looking for, before coming to ROI, I went all over the website and I read everybody's profiles.
And you didn't come looking for me. No, I'm just joking.
I knew that you're going to come to me.
So that's a great point. Often before you go to events, you can get the list of who's going to be there and do the research. We do that a lot at our events. We give them to our fellows, say, here's the guest list we're launching. And then we can sometimes point out, or you can go up to someone and say, who are the people I should be talking to here tonight? Or do you mind pointing out 1 or 2 people that are interesting? It's totally, and people really appreciate that because it shows that you're serious and that you're invested and that you really want to do this. Yeah.
I didn't get the last one.
The last one is that we're just going to partner and pitch back. So this is a workshop that we're not going to do. But usually in the presentation when you teach it, you start off with a 3-minute conversation. So the fellows have a chance to really, 3-minute conversations like that don't usually happen. But what does happen is that they get to practice and then eventually really focus in. If you can't say what you do in 15 seconds, you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what you do. The next one is we usually do it in 45 seconds. So we're narrowing it down, right? We're like, okay, it's from 3 minutes to 45. Again, it's an opportunity for you to really focus in. So usually the fellows really they have usually this really long pitch, and you'll find that in a 3-minute conversation, they start talking about it in a really complicated way about all the people that they're going to hire and who's going to be there and the first event that they're going to do and why you're going to love it, and that's not necessary. Like we spoke about that in the beginning. It's the outcome. Focus on the outcome. Yeah, they are.
So we have the 15 seconds, 45 seconds, and 3 minutes.
Yeah. And the 15 second, I think, is the most important, and that's why we're going to go into it today, because it's the one that you're just going to grab, you're just going to pull it out every time. Because your 15 seconds could become, if someone's really interested, great, it'll become a 3-minute. But you're going to start with 15 seconds.
Are we going to get an example?
We're going to do 15 seconds now. You want samples of pitches?
Like a 15-second
There's
pitch?
actually-
Here, Gal, get up.
He was prepared.
Should I be the mayor? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, come on, launch me out of the way. So many young people in Israel seek connection to our culture. They don't actually have a place to do it in a language that is their own. Shabbat Yavi is a young community of secular Israelis that celebrate Judaism in a social, cultural, wonderful, musical, happy way. Come see me after to know some more.
Wait, but Gal, you walked away when you were still pitching.
Yeah, that was because I was nervous.
So what you guys, give Gal, first of all, let's give you a hand of applause because you did not prepare. What did you guys think about that?
Oh.
Sorry, just giving.
Obviously, you've been practicing on it for quite a while.
How's our credit card? Just go anyway. First of all, you guys saw that Gal practice. That's good though, because you want to go in there and you want to come really focused and practice. I always tell fellows, because they're like, what am I going to say, how I'm going to do it? I'm like, this is your venture. No one knows it better than you. No one's passionate about it more than you are. What are you nervous about? Like, go out and tell them why this is, what's your Egypt and what the promised land is and what you need from them. So you have to really, people get really intimidated by this piece because it's really putting yourself out there. Like the fellows till now, up to the stage have been really, focused, like really philosophizing about their venture. Like suddenly they have to, someone throwing them out and saying, go and talk to people about it. And that's really, really intimidating for people. Yes?
I think about the 3 questions, about what's the problem, what's the solution, what do people do about it. I think Gal, in his 15 seconds, I think did a great job with present the problem and what's the solution and about what I want people to do about it. Come and see me later. And I think it's a great use of time because he doesn't, for 15 seconds, he doesn't have time where I want you to give me some money, I want your time, and I need your service. So just come and see me later.
That's an important point.
We have 45 minutes.
Well, that's a really important point. I'll tell you the context of what Gal did in it, right? So at the end of our fellowship, there's a big launch night where our fellows get up and they pitch for 15 seconds, and there's a huge kind of, I call it like a science fair, where they have tables out and they walk around and people come. And who has been to launch night here? To present tense launch. Okay, so some of you have seen it. So it didn't work so well in Tel Aviv because they changed around the model a little, so there wasn't the table aspect really after. But usually what people could do after, and Aaron's going to teach us great tools of how we manage these tables and how we handle these people who are like, for 5 hours are telling you, I really think that's an interesting idea, but have you thought of, and you're like, well, I need to talk to 10 other people. And Aaron will teach us how to do that. But the context of what Gal was pitching it today was the context of, there's 200 people in the crowd. Every one of the people in the crowd could do 200 different things for me. So the best thing to do is come see my table and let's have a conversation of how we could do it. I always see, there's like a small little kind of story that I always think is the best story of Friendraising. So in Megillat Esther, right, Esther has a conversation. Haman is about to kill the Jews. It's like a really huge issue. But she invites the king says, what do you need? She's like, I want to invite you for a meal. Let's have it. She could have been like, the Jews are about to die. No, she's like, I want to invite you for a meal. So the king comes, and he has a whole meal with her, and it's a great time, and he goes to her, okay, what do you need? She's like, I want to invite you back for another meal. And the king's like, oh, okay, great, I'll meet. Again, here's her second opportunity to say, Haman is about to kill all of the Jews. You need to do something. No. Instead, she invites them to another meal. And the king comes to the next meal. This is after 3, this is her third opportunity, and then she asks for it. And I think this is a great example of friendraising. She did not go at her first time. She did not jump out at him and say, the Jews are about. No, she said, let me create this. This is a process. I don't want to overwhelm the king. I want to create more of a comfortable relationship. I want to show him that, she created a process here. And I think that's the things that happened. And I always look at that example as something that we really do in our day-to-day life. You're not going to ask for your biggest favor of your life at your first meeting or your first 5 seconds with someone. And often at these launch nights, not often, very rarely at these launch nights, people get money. Very rarely. The most valuable things that they get, and I think they're more valuable than money, they get their name out there, they meet a lot of interesting people, they invite a lot of people for coffee, they collect a lot of business cards and write in the back of what these people are and why they need to meet with them, and then they meet them for coffee, and then they say, who are the people you think I should meet? And then they meet those people, then they follow up and say, I just met your friend Dan, thank you so much for the introduction, he's really excited about our project, I'd love to tell you where we're at right now. And it's like the same concept of what Queen Esther did. And I think that's a really beautiful example of when we look at Friendraising, when we look at that and say, how do I build that relationship over time? How do I not throw it in someone's face, come change the world? She could have done that and she decided not to. So I think that realizing what you need to ask from someone is also a process and it doesn't have to happen right away.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Also though, these people are busy people, so they don't necessarily want to have 10 different coffees with you, and isn't they also need to get it out and not kind of stretch out the
It's a balance. So some people are really excited about the things that you're doing, and if you grab a 25-minute coffee with them, this is actually something they're really excited about. So they'd much rather sit with you than spend 10 hours looking at balance sheets. So you're actually giving them an opportunity to be part of something that they're really passionate about. So if you look at that in that way, obviously you're not going to say let's meet for a 2-hour lunch. But when you grab them for a quick coffee or you send them a quick email and you ask them a question, you're actually giving them an opportunity to escape from the day-to-day things that they're probably not so passionate about and do something that they're really excited about. And look at that, look at it as an opportunity you're giving them. Why are you laughing, Ray?
No, because as an artist, you meet in all these gallery opening, all these rich people, and this is what they're passionate to see: art and creative people and people that actually do something that they like rather than make a lot of money.
Yeah, but it's a great example, right? They're coming to the art gallery opening because they really care about it. So you already have a captive audience there because they clearly care about the things that you're doing.
Sometimes they come and meet the hot girls and get free drinks.
Okay.
And just...
So that is also a byproduct. But I think that you have to realize how you use your time effectively, how you build your relationship over time. The queen could have said the same thing. The king is really, really busy. Let me just get it out there. But she decided to build this over time and do it in a very, very smart, careful way. But also remember that they're busy.
I would also say it's not your responsibility to manage other people's time.
Perfect.
And in a general sense, people get the opportunity to say no on their own. You don't have to give them the opportunity by not asking for their time. And I say that because we tend to, as people, we put limitations on other people without realizing it. In the same way, I remember a friend of mine many years ago saying, she's out of my league. And I remember thinking to myself, you put a limitation on somebody else.
Let them do that for you.
Let them make that decision.
Let them say no.
You have no idea what their passions are until you put it out there and find out for yourself.
And you listen, you ask, and the worst thing that you're going to get is say, no, this is actually, I'm in a really busy time right now. I'd love if we could catch up in 6 more months. And you're like, okay. And you try. Yeah, fine.
So basically, I want to figure out if I got it right. Basically, what you want to do, if you want to articulate to one last sentence, that need to go viral, basically. So they need everyone to remember me, supposedly, and maybe he's not going to help me, but his friends most probably will do it for me.
Going viral is you need to get the word out there. You need to ask as many people as, introduce you to relevant people, to make connections for you, to speak to. I remember that when I just started working at Present Tense, it was like 3.5 years ago, Aro and Ariel would introduce me to all these people, and I'd sit in these meetings and why am I meeting with these people? This is so not interesting for them, or this is so not relevant to what I'm doing. And before I knew it, I was meeting with all these excellent, interesting people that I didn't understand the connection right away. I don't think I've ever said no to meeting with someone, which makes you guys should realize that also. But it was a huge opportunity for me because suddenly I started really expanding my network, and this person was connecting me to that person. And 2 years later, I was like, I really need a mentor for one of these programs. Let me email this person again. And it's the more people that you could meet and talk to and get the word out there. You're practicing them. Look at them as a practicing opportunity.
Or they give you an ability to collaborate your ideas,
they'll give you great
on a
insights.
venture or your techniques.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that the more you could have those, and the more successful eventually you'll be able to be, because you've really done this over and over. The amount of people that have come through the hub and see the projects that we've done and met eventually like, oh, we're in Present Tense. Yeah, I met with someone there 2.5 years ago. It's really, there's no reason not to do that. It's time consuming. And eventually, maybe at a more advanced stage, you'll be able to maybe ask your volunteers or your board members or someone to help to spread the wealth and help you do it. But in the beginning, it's it's a great opportunity to get out there.
Basically, you're rich when you've got a stockpile of visiting cards.
The more business cards with little notes on them to remember why you met that person, because that happens. I'm like, what did I get this person? Or what did I need from this person? Or what was this person interested in giving me? But as I come back from from different events and conferences, and I pour out the business cards and look like this person, I need to follow up about this. And it's a really important thing when someone gives you, first of all, the first rule, and Aaron will talk about it today, is don't give anyone your business. Like I try not to even give my business card. People are not following up with me. Like I need to follow up with them. Like I can give it to them, but this guy's not going to be calling me next week and saying I'm excited about your venture. I'm going to be calling up and I'll be emailing and saying it was great meeting you at the conference yesterday. I would love to grab coffee and hear more about or tell you more about. And that's really on you. We're getting into networking. I don't want to do that. Let's quickly do our 15-second pitch. What your jobs are going to be is now I'm going to give you like 10 seconds to think about something that you do, your job, a venture, an idea that you really care about, an imaginary venture that you just came up with right this second. Any ideas of like what? Any one of those for a venture that you would have loved to see in the future, whatever it is. Think about it and spend 10 to 15 seconds writing it down. And then we're going to ask you to partner and to pitch to each other. And then I'm going to ask a couple of you brave people to get up there and have an opportunity for the whole group to hear your pitches, okay? So ready, set, go. I'll tell you when your time is up to start partnering. Okay. I know, those are like less, yeah, that one's anyone paper, pen, or anything? No, they're good? We're writing? We're writing for our problem, or we're writing for our pitch? Your pitch is made up of your problem, your solution, and what you need from people.
That would be a 15-minute pitch. 15 seconds.
Oh my God, how long did they get
אין שום סיכוי היום.
לא,
זה לא לי.
הוא מודיע לאנשים שלי, כן זה משהו דחוף. תתקשר אליי.
אי אפשר ככה
לא, מודיע לאנשים במייל חוזר. ככה אתה צריך לתקשר. יש פה גם איזה טאבלט של תגובה. תגיד מה אתה רוצה,
רוב התקשורת שלי
Yeah, we're pretty much the final draft. So you have 5 or 10 seconds to think about what you're writing down. You're gonna tailor it a little because your partner's gonna give you feedback and say, I didn't really understand your problem or your solution didn't make sense. So write something like a rough draft out there. It's an opportunity for you to also experience what the fellows are gonna experience when you're sitting and teaching them. So that's good. Money strong.
crazy entering Jerusalem.
You're welcome. Nightmare. Oh, should we pause the video maybe?
it's still going.
Yeah, pause it maybe. Piece of paper. Or we're able, how many people were able to do it without pay, without looking at anything? Okay. And that's again, it's going to take time. Like your fellows at this stage are not going to, they're going to write it down and they're going to read it and then they're going to read it again. They're going to tell them to go home and stand in front of the mirror and do it in their car and do it on the phone to all their friends. Because by the time it's time to do it at lunch night, they should be able to do it without needing to use paper. But it's okay that at this stage they're reading off something. It takes time. Yeah, no.
I think we saw something very interesting with Lior that took him like 44 seconds, and then it was so easy for him just wording it differently to go down to 14 seconds.
Okay, tell us about that, Lior, because that's interesting.
That helped me to see what actually the part I said that are redundant, and I found that I repeat myself 2 or 3 times in the same 45 minutes. So
right? So often it's just like a little switch to realize that you're just saying, telling a really long story or getting into details that are really unnecessary, realizing that people need to just know the outcome and what you're about to change and not how and all the details. Just a couple of small tips. We're actually not going to, I'll ask one person to get up there in a minute, but I'll just give you a couple of small tips that I find very successful in pitches. Statistics and numbers. Always great to start with statistics and numbers. It builds a lot of credibility and it creates a lot of organization in someone's head. 30% of North American Jews. 10% of $16,000. We had a fellow who did that. She got up there.
That's in presenting the problem?
When you starting off with the problem, but using numbers, $15,000 a year are thrown down the drain for no. 30% of Jewish teens in America today are. Can I tell you why that works? A, because you just really created credibility. You created organization in someone's head, like, okay, there's a problem, there's numbers. People really relate to numbers. And you've also really defined the problem very accurately. You should, definitely should. The second thing is that I often see people's pitches where they're like, we are planning to. No. You're doing it already. Like, we are going to build. No, we are building. Like, you have to talk about it happening in the present, not in the future. You want people to get excited and invest in you. Don't talk about something you're going to do in 10 years. You're doing it now. You got up here on stage today, you're doing it. People want to see that. Yeah, Brachie.
When you said the first thing about mentioning facts, this is numbers. Can you present the solution or the problem as something that's not taking place now? Like, the problem is that people are not getting this and this treatment, and this is also the solution inside.
Like, this is not like rocket science, this is not math, this is not equation. Like, if it works and you're able to create, like, the most important thing in a pitch, right, is to create credibility, to create and pique someone's interest and to let people relate to it. If you could do that through your pitch, I need to download that. Let's get one person up here to pitch and then we're going to run through. Who wants to do it? Just so you guys could. You don't have to if you don't want. You could run ahead. To run ahead? Okay, we're going to run ahead. That was much easier than I thought. Okay, so again, we spoke about starting with numbers and statistics, always very helpful. Talking about it happening now and not in some random time in the future. Focusing and not getting into all the details of how you're going to do it, but really what you're doing. Sometimes, we're not going to get into that. Okay. So we workshopped. You got the people, right? You pitched. This is, now what are you going to do with them? Once you have the people, once you've got people really excited and interested, then what do you need from them? And these are the different types of areas where you can get people involved in the work that you're doing. So volunteers. Volunteers are people who want to get involved. It's a one-off opportunity. Think about ways to get them to volunteer in the work that you're doing. If it's coming to one of your events, like bone marrow drives, right? Coming to a swap. If it's coming to man a table at an event, whatever it is. Steering committee. These small advisory groups around specific programs or projects are often really great for your program.
Amazing.
It's a way to get, first of all, you get the best advice. You build a community around the work you're doing. You as an entrepreneur are not alone anymore. There's no reason why you should have to be doing these things alone. But more specifically, these people could eventually, I can tell you that we have had steering committee members who are now sitting on our board. Like, they are people who are slowly invested in the work that you're doing, who learn about it, who get excited, who eventually could take on bigger roles. A board, which is a vessel for people to invest time, wisdom, money, and introductions. I can say that the board is something, one of the first things that I do when I learn about a new venture or a new project. I go to their page of who we are and I see who sits on their board. It gives a lot of credibility to the organization or to the venture. You could learn a lot. If people want to see that other people are investing their time or their money or are putting their stamp on your project, it's a really important thing to do. Partnerships. We're all about partnerships. The more organizations that you can partner, I can tell you that all of our programs around the world are based on partnerships. We do not do anything alone. It's a business model that we've created that works for us, but also really gives us, first of all, helps us scale in a much better way. It gives us opportunity, it gives people, gives us credibility. Like when the JDC is investing in projects that we're doing in Russia, I could sit with any municipality in Israel who knows them and say, oh wow, like you've worked with the JDC, okay. Or the JDC believes in you. It really, but it also helps the work that you're doing, partnerships. You don't need to hold everything on your own. If there's a project or a venture out there that's doing something similar to you, or that you guys complement each other, there's no reason why you shouldn't be figuring out a way to work together. And donors, these are people who have more money than time and who totally believe in you and want to give you. I look at this as kind of stream. Like you start with Someone can start off as a small volunteer. Maybe they're volunteering to connect you to someone. Eventually, they could maybe sit on some type of committee. It doesn't have to be specifically this, but give you a little bit more time. And then eventually, they become like really invested by sitting on your board and putting their name on your project. So, on what you do. Eventually, this person is more of a partner, and then finally, it can maybe even give you money. That's how I also see it. Start thinking about this relationship, that it's a process, it's built over time. No one's going to come right off and just give you all of their time and their money. It's a process.
When you say steering committees and board, how many people would you say would be on a steering committee or on a board?
Okay, so it depends the size of your venture, the scope of what you're doing. Steering committees that are manageable are usually 12 people. I always think 8 people is more manageable. Boards, it really depends. Like 8 people on a board. Like, what's a good size of a board? That depends on.
If you're a small startup organization, you should probably start with a board of 5, and then add people. And you want those people to be really invested and involved and create a culture of investment and involvement. And then you can add people as you go forward. If you're really going to use the board.
How do you make sure that the board doesn't, the whole process of function of the management of the organization,
yeah.
how do you מחלק את זה בין people that do the work and board members, because the terminology is very confusing.
Board members are often, and if you're able to put them to work in the right way, board members can be very super involved. I have board members that I meet with on a regular basis, and I update them. I even bring them to meetings. Sometimes there was a point where I was pitching something to the municipality of Tel Aviv, and I needed help from a board member. I had brought them to the meeting with me. I did that with the steering committee member also. Often board members, it's really about how you're able to create opportunities where they could do meaningful things and give from their knowledge and experience. So I think that a board that just sits and doesn't do much is not effective for an organization at its startup stage. And as much as you can get the board working by connecting you to people, by reading over really depends on the scope of what you do. But the board should be very active. In kind of in a normal, they have other jobs, but they should be active as a board. They shouldn't just be someone with a passive board, specifically in the beginning. Okay, for new volunteers. So we're going to go into it more specifically. I'm going to do this part very quickly, because I have to go and Aaron has to do networking. They need time-efficient opportunities. Usually it's something very specific. It's time-limited and achievable. It's the same way you bring someone new in, right? You're not going to give them this 6-month program that has 15 milestones. You're going to start with something small. You're building off slowly. You're going to give them an achievable, time-bound thing. So first of all, they feel good about themselves, like they did it, they succeeded. Volunteers need to feel like they've really given. They need to see the results of what they've given. Because of your help, you were able to get 15 new swaps for bone marrow, because of really time-bound, achievable. Personal benefit. They want to feel like, volunteers might truly care about the cause, but they also care about themselves. Learn what the individual needs. It's the same thing. There's such psychology behind this. And we spoke about, the shoes, right? What does this person care about? Does this person care about comfort? Does this person care about, are they wearing Toms because they care about people who don't have shoes in Africa? Think about what they care about and let them do things in that specific area. Volunteers can be really, really helpful. You guys learned a lot about Marla's venture, right, for skilled volunteers for Israel. There's so many, right? Yeah, I know, and that's how you realize I haven't used it once today. But volunteers can be one of the most beneficial thing of the work you're doing. If you give them time-bound, achievable goals where they get personal benefit from it, very, very great. For promising volunteers, they become steering committee. And like I said, we've had people who started as volunteers, who become steering committee members, and are eventually moved to our board. People who had a successful, positive experience the first time around with you, where they were able to do something very specific and feel really good about it, they're going to want to give more time, right? So it's like the whole thing with Queen Esther, they're going to want to come back again for a meal. So give them more things. Don't give them small things again. You're building them up as a extension of what you do. You're letting them be part of the narrative. Give them more responsibility. So we create committees. Let them be part of the committees that you do. The more people, entrepreneurs are lonely, and entrepreneurs are a lot of the time on their own. The more you could bring people into the work that you're doing, the more successful you could be. First of all, you have 8 other people who are just as passionate about your venture as you. Amazing. You have 8 other people who are telling 10 other people about the work you're doing. That's great. You don't have to hold everything on your shoulders. You have a great opportunity to bring people in. Structured involvement, regular meetings, regular tasks and job descriptions. We have steering committee models that work better and work a little less effectively. It's something that we're constantly learning. Volunteer management is a whole world within itself. But the most important thing that, and I just had a meeting with the chair of our Jerusalem Steering Committee, who's an associate director of a major Jerusalem organization. And she said to me that she felt like the most, she didn't understand like the long-term plan of what she was about to do in Jerusalem. But like when you're able to give them structured, times, we're going to meet once a month for 4 hours, like you confined it for them of what it means, they're a lot more excited to do it. Because I'm like, I usually need 4 hours from you a month. Oh, okay, that's doable. 4 hours a month doesn't sound like a lot, but for you it's a lot. And for them, it's like, oh, I can do that. But if you tell someone, I need you to sit on my committee, we're going to have meet, like that's overwhelming for them. Like give them very structured opportunities for involvement. Again, respecting their time. They're often very, very busy people. For more trusted volunteers, they could get personal responsibility. Each person needs to know that their organization depends on them to survive. Many board members invest their wealth, wisdom, or work. So I guess what's important here is that you could take someone even further than a steering committee. I don't have enough very successful experiences around that. I have 1 or 2 that have been really good, and that's what you should really strive for. And the fellows that you work with, you should tell them, like, you'll have 1 or 2 more people who really care about the work you're doing and want to continue staying invested, and you could ask them. This is not something that's going to happen for 15 people. Like, you could give them very specific things like, I know we really need your help in doing the following. And again, you could take them to the next level, you could continue with the relationship with them, but you're narrowing your people. Like, a lot of people will do 1 hour a year, a lot less people will do 4 hours a month, and a lot less people will do 5 hours a month on a regular basis for a year. Yeah.
I think boards and steering committees is something that you need to be very thoughtful when you invite, both because you don't want, if you have a vision, you need people that would coexist or communicate with that vision, because you ultimately want to get great advice and actually be able to do that. You don't want a board or a steering committee that thinks completely different than you and tries to continuously get you off of your topic. Also, you can't waste your time. You have, ultimately they want to see that their recommendations are being put to use.
That's such an important thing. The worst thing you could do with a steering committee is say, please come in and tell us what you want us to do, and then they'll give you a whole report and then you do nothing with it. I can tell you that I did that once, and it's like my biggest failure, like my first and biggest failure with steering committees. I said, please suggest to us what you'd like us to do with the Global Summer Fellows on a day trip. It was actually Michael, who works for us now. He started out as our steering committee, and he wrote me a whole document, and I was like, great idea, next. And it was like really one of the biggest mistakes I did, because Michael spent a really long time figuring that out. And till this day, he makes me remember that. And he says to me, remember that time when you put the committee together and asked us for recommendations? Now, I didn't use it for very good reasons. Like, it didn't work at a time of our, but whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is Michael spent time, he built a program, I didn't go by it, I messed up, and he remembers it till this day. So you have to really create committees that are going to do something that you could use, and if you can't use it, figure out together with them what else you could do. This is people's time, these are people's recommendations, you have to really respect that.
What's fiduciary?
Fiduciary. It's like, it has to do with like...
It means financial. Like
Fiduciary.
I'm running through because I have 5 more minutes. Okay, so for partners and other organizations, again, like we spoke about this, try to think about how you don't need 15 organizations that are dealing with the same thing in a city. And I think the community and even donors, they love to see organizations working together. One of the first things that Leash Tag, spoke to us about is, well, how are you working with other organizations in Jerusalem? And I was like, okay, good. Like, they want to make sure that people are working together and benefiting and sharing resources. We don't want to be funding the same thing 16 times. And the more that you could create those relationships, and the more that you could build together with people, the more, I think, first of all, the more sustainable you are for the community, the more you're invested in the community. The people are excited to see that. You don't need to be working alone with 15 other organizations that are working alone. It's really important to think how you do that. And your environmental scan can prepare you for that. Like your environmental scan totally helps you scan out who are the people you should be working with, or who are the people you should be collaborating, or so you can always send the fellows back to that slide. For those with more money than time, and this is going to happen, right? It's a process. It's not going to happen right away, but some people have more money than time, and they're going to want to give, and they're excited about what you're doing. And 2 of the most important things is, first of all, you need to quantify. everyone gives something, and they need to understand, what is it? What is that unique something? Learn what a donor generally gives. And Ray said this the best. She's like, don't go into a meeting for a donor who usually gives $100,000 grants and ask him for $2, right? You have to understand who the person that's sitting in front of you, do the research, who's he given to before, how much is he given. Maybe you shouldn't be asking for $50,000 off the top. But quantify in a way that makes sense, in a way that's sensible. And also tailor their role. I think it's really important to give donors manageable opportunities that fit their particular backgrounds and interests. So a lot of times we'll invite our donors in to come meet with our fellows and talk about their experiences in building their venture or how they give. Give them opportunities to be part of it. It's not enough to get someone's money and say thank you, we'll see you next year. People they gave to you because they're passionate about what you do. So give them opportunities to get involved in what you do. Have them mentor. What if you could be an excellent mentor? Have them come in and speak to your board. Think about ways that, for us, we've created directions that people can really feed back in. Create ways through your idea, your venture, where people could continue being part of this narrative that they're so excited about. They gave money because they're excited about what you do, so let them continue being excited and show them what you're continuing to do. And then you have to follow up. Tell them how the donation helped. Tell them that, because of the donation, and we do this with all our chairs, right? So our fellows are writing updates to their chairs. This is what I'm doing this week. This is what I've learned. Here's questions. Get them involved. Ask them, say this is what this is what we did with the money. This is where we went with it. Make them really feel part of the process. It's funny because I didn't see this in the slides, and then I didn't know it was still here. So we spoke about this a lot. You're not going to start from your venture inception to be asking for a lot of money. It's a very slow process. We spoke about that in the beginning. You could ask for some time and some advice. The more you get someone invested into the process, the more they'll be able to give you through it. 6 months, you're building more credibility. You could ask for ideas and advice, maybe small partnerships. Eventually, when you get to year 3, you could really start asking for money and
big chunks.
What?
Big chunks.
And it's what we said through the whole entire process. This doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to be. It's something that you're building over time, realizing that these are relationships that are really a process. Okay, so this is when the fellows start working on their venture milestone, right? We're saying that in order to get money, they need to create a really good summary. We tell them that what goes into a good executive summary is these 5 following points. Their vision. I want you guys to realize that this is all things they did. They're just taking all of their 5 milestones and they're narrowing them down into one sheet. And this makes a lot of sense. I think this is one of the most important ones that they're going to do because they figured out what have I done in the past 5 months? How do I narrow it down into a sheet that makes sense? And most importantly is your executive summary is going to look very different for very different people. And you're going to focus on different things. One thing that we didn't talk about a lot, and I just want to bring it up, is the team. A team is a really, really, really important piece to discuss in your executive summary. People want to know, people give to people, right? They want to know who are the people behind that they're investing in. What are the different kind of roles that each person is going to play in the team? What do they bring to the table? How are they going to complement each other? And the team is something really important to think about. Again, your fellows are going to go back at the end and they're going to practice it here first, where they're going to go through everything. So what's a vision, right? This is your first milestone. What's market opportunity? Your environmental scan, right? What's the market opportunity? What's wrong with the world? What needs to change? Who else is doing it? How to express the business model? What are the activities that are going to create the outcomes that you want? Focus on value provided to target market. So really get into the details here. We're not going to do it now. How do you present a team? A team must inspire credibility. Investors are looking for individuals with successful, relevant, and complementary experience. And people will ask you about each team member, why will this person make or break this venture? And it's really important. I want you guys to think about it also in your pitch. If you're pitching a new Jewish education venture, talk about the fact that you're a teacher or that you've had 15 years of experience in the Jewish world. It's so obvious sometimes too that that's what you do, but no one knows that about you. Or talk about the fact that you ran for 15 years a financial arm of an organization. If this is relevant to what you're doing, point it out, bring it up. Okay, how do you list what you need? This is tricky, just so you understand, because your needed resources are going to be very different. And for needed resources, it's important to also focus on what the needed resources are going to get you to. So say you want to create, you want to create a new paradigm, of doing something specific. I need, you can say I need $15,000 so I could fly 15 fellows in from around the world to Israel for 6 weeks. Well, maybe they want to give, help them understand what they're giving to. Maybe they want to give you in-kind donation. Maybe they want to break it up into, like, quantify it for them, compartmentalize it for them even, so they could really understand how they give. But also realize that it's going to be something else for each person. Like, you're not going to ask for one person the same thing you're going to ask from another. And again, like what I said in the beginning, sales is marketing. Like, how are you marketing this specific executive summary to reach the person that you're going to meet with today? Guess who this is? It's not Marlos. This is what an executive summary could look like. We start off with the vision, the value, the business, the market opportunity, the team, the resources, something in the bottom. It looks, people really, when you go with this to an investor or to anyone, they're like, this person is serious. This person has thought through a process. This person is not just coming with an idea. He's really thought it through. He understands how he's going to do it. He knows who's going to do it with him. He understands why it's needed. He knows what the business model is going to be, what he needs, and how I'm going to contact him. Okay, then we make them workshop kind of their business, their executive summary, and then we talk to them about their milestone. I'm going to give it over to Aro now, but I'm just going to finish with the final thing. That building a temple, right, we're back to the Jewish narrative here, it takes people. You need, an entrepreneur's main goal is to bring people together around a common goal. We spoke about this narrative, we spoke about the concept of Shavuot. We spoke about even like in a marathon, right? You want to bring people around a common goal where they feel part of a narrative, where they feel part of something bigger. We spoke about the different ways that they could do it. Either, starting off with small conversations, going into maybe volunteering an hour a week, eventually giving more time, eventually giving money. People want to feel part of something. Every fruit counts, and a temple wasn't built in a day. And everything that you get from someone, we have this incredible fellow from Jewish Kids Group who just did amazing. She just, how much money did she raise, Anna Fuchsaro?
45,000.
Oh, I think it's such a great story. Like I think we live in a very new world where you don't need 45 for one-off person. Like, she has close to 70 or 80 people, I'd say, that are really excited about her venture right now because they gave her small amounts of money. Like, think about that. It counts. There are people around the world that are thinking about Jewish kids groups because she gave them an opportunity. Like, did them a favor to let them be part of the work that she's doing. And remember that, every fruit really counts. And I think that's really what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this is one side.
This is your feed all. So thank you guys very much. I'll give you guys one more second for questions, and then I have to run.
It's just a comment. My grandfather taught me fundraising, and when he said, it was my earliest lesson in anything, he said to me, when I go out and ask my friends to help me in a project, I'm giving them the gift to be able to give a gift.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the most beautiful thing that I've ever learned.
That's exactly like what we've been saying today, is you're giving someone an opportunity to be part of something bigger. So like as we said today, is people give to people. A lot of times fundraising is really marketing, and it's a process. And like that's the things that we need to remember, and that's kind of what I'm hoping we'll be able to tell the fellows and work with them. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Brachie.
And I'll be around again later for questions, because we're really running late here.
You guys want to take a little break though?
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll be back though in like about an hour, so we'll talk then. Just running late.